Hi everyone, my name is Natalie. Today I thought that I would do another mid-month chat. So I did a mid-month chat in September. Yes, where I talked about some recent favorites, what I was knitting, some currently reading, and Invisible City stuff. And I had planned to do it in October, kind of missed it, and then I just decided to continue on this month. So I'll start off with some recent favorites. So first of all, I went to the cinema for the first time since the pandemic hit. To watch the French Dispatch premiere, and that was so amazing. I really loved the French Dispatch, which is the most recent movie by Wes Anderson. If you don't know this, Wes Anderson is my favorite current movie director, so I had been anticipating this movie for a while, and it was just fantastic to watch it at the cinema and all of the various things related to the movie and the anthology aspect of it. I just thought it worked really well, and I just had a lot of fun, and I think I definitely missed going to the cinema. There's just something very grandeur or majestic about watching a movie in that environment, and particularly when you have audience around you that have similar reactions to things that you do. The people sitting next to me were laughing at the same things and sort of reacting the same way I did, and it just felt like such a community experience that I really enjoyed that. Another thing that I've done in the beginning of November, I want to say, is for the first time I have gone to the library to browse books. So I have been using the library in the last 2 years by using reservations from my library and just picking the books up. With libraries, of course, there's a mix of new and old, and you can decide on if you want to go through the fiction shelves or if you want to go through a particular nonfiction sections. And so I went straight to the music section, and I just loved it so much and found 2 books that I hadn't heard of before. And I just felt like that was something I'd missed, that the experience of discovery and of kind of finding things that catches your eye and immediately going home with it, and the freedom that comes with using the library. So it was just kind of definitely a highlight in the last few weeks, that feeling. I have a few favorites when it comes to watching stuff and listening to stuff. So when it comes to music, I've been listening to NCT stuff a lot since September. NCT is a K-pop group. The entire group is 23 members, and there's several subunits. And one of the subunits, NCT 127, released a new album in September and then released a repackaged album in October. And so I've been listening to those songs a lot in the last few months. Pretty much every day I've been listening through either one album or more, and so it's just been a constant companion throughout the autumn. They've also done several YouTube related content things that I've been really enjoying, and that has brought me joy more than I can say. So if you're into K-pop, I definitely suggest checking them out. Particularly NCT 127 is my favorite subunit of all of the things, but they make a lot of fantastic songs, and often they do kind of unusual songs for K-pop. So that is something that I've been really enjoying in terms of music. In terms of watching, aside from French Dispatch, that has definitely been a highlight of the movies I've watched recently. I've also really enjoyed Queen's Gambit, which I finally got around to watching. And I've also been rewatching Natsume Yuinsho, which is a anime. It is, I think, 6 seasons, and I've just started rewatching the first season. It is my favorite anime series. Aside from Sailor Moon, which is my favorite from childhood, and I've been watching it throughout my life. But this is my favorite as an adult viewer. And it's got a lot of mythological creatures and the themes of friendship and family and connection. It makes me cry pretty much every single episode, and I'm not a very emotional person, so I'm just constantly moved by it. So if you're at all someone who enjoys anime, I highly recommend this series. It's just one of the best well-made, one of the most well-made anime series I've ever seen, and the music soundtrack throughout all of the seasons is just perfection. So those are some of my recent favorites. In terms of my knitting, I have finally finished Arctic Spring, which I showed you in my previous mid-month chat. So I don't know if I can show you the entire thing. I don't know if you can tell in the shot. But the only thing I have left of this is to weave in the ends, as you can see, and these ribs actually are meant to be doubled like this and to sew the hems that way. Yeah, sew the hems like this. And so I have that to do, and also to block this entire thing. I will fix the last bits of this so I can use it throughout the winter season. But it's a bit too warm for the current weather anyway, so there's no rush, and these things will not take very long. I just need to get to it. My current project is the Colm sweater, which is this guy. So I don't know how well you can see. This is basically a rib pattern for the front panel, and then moss stitch in the sides and the back, and it has this little side seam thing, and fake seams. Let's see if I can show you this. Fake seams in the sides and on both sides as well. I'm knitting this in the rust color of Knitting for Olive Merino yarn. I love this yarn. It's very soft and fine. It is fingering or light fingering weight. It is very thin yarn or low weight yarn, which means it takes a longer time to knit, but I'm really enjoying that. So this is my main knitting project at the moment. I will link the Colm pattern in the description below, as well as the Arctic Spring. I'm thinking of starting a hat pattern soon for the winter season, which will probably be a fairly quick project to do anyway, and I could do that alongside doing this quite slow project. Next up, I wanted to quickly mention some Invisible City stuff. In October, I read quite a lot of books for Sweden and one book for Guinea. I will link the October wrap-up that I just did, talking about all of those books. But I also watched 2 movies for Sweden. One was Inland, which was a movie adaptation of Elin Willow's novel that I read earlier this year that I really enjoyed the movie of. I feel like the movie is quite different from the book in tone, but I liked a lot of the things in it, even though I didn't always agree with the interpretation of the novel. I still like the movie on its own, in its own right, and I think the quietness of the novel was definitely kept. The other movie I watched that made an impression was Let the Right One In, which is a Swedish vampire movie, which it does have vampires in it, and obviously that is part of the story, but it feels like that is not really the main point of the movie. The violence is kind of central, but not so much the fact that it's made by vampires. Again, I really like the quietness of it as contrasted to the violence. And I thought it was also really beautifully done. The way the violence and the quietness contrasts in visually. My plan for November for Invisible Cities, we have Paraguay and Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone, I'm planning to borrow a book from the library. I have a few options there, but the one I am planning to read for Paraguay is I, the Supreme by Augusto Rua Bastos, and this was translated by Helen Lane. I bought this one because it sounded really interesting to me, and so I wanted to have it. It says, I, the Supreme, imagines a dialogue between the 19th century Paraguayan dictator known as Dr. Funkia and Policarpo Patino, his secretary and only companion. Their conversations brought us into an epic journey of the mind stretching across colonial history of their nation, filled with surrealist imagery, labyrinth turns, and footnotes supplied by a mysterious compiler. A towering achievement from a foundational author of modern Latin American literature, Ida Supreme is a darkly comic, deeply moving meditation on power and its abuse, and on the role of language in making and unmaking whole worlds. And of course, if you know anything about me, you know that I'm really into language stuff. Language learning and the power of language is definitely my kind of thing. That is my Invisible City stuff. My currently reading is entirely taken over by Nonfiction November with one exception, and that is a book that is hanging around from October reading. So one of the books that I am currently reading is from my Nonfiction November TBR, and that is Listen to This by Alex Ross. This is a essay collection talking about various music history topics. So one of the essays that I just read was on Radiohead, which was fantastic for me because it meant I was listening to a lot of their music and discovered that I actually really love it. So it's been something I've been listening to all through this weekend. A lot of the essays talk about classical composing and sort of composing in different time periods and how it changes with the times. He talks about different genres like jazz and rock and punk, pop and classical and all of the various places in between. He talks about specific musicians or composers or bands. So there's just so many different topics involved in this. I'm not that well versed in music theory, so there's definitely some things that just flows by me, and I don't catch all of the intricate details in his reasoning, but I enjoy the history aspect of it. I enjoy a lot of the different parallels he makes with different genres and time periods and all of that I mentioned. And I enjoy the experience of discovery that I have with listening to the things he's discussing and sort of trying to see what he's referencing and that kind of thing. So again, much like other books with sort of cultural topics when it comes to nonfiction, it tends to become an entire experience for me because I tend to want to explore the things that it talks about alongside it, so it becomes sort of a media kind of thing, and that makes kind of a difference in how much enjoyment I take out of the reading too when I can combine it with other forms of media, and that has definitely been the case with this one. Another music related book that I'm currently reading, and one of the books that I picked up from the library when I was browsing it, is Parallels and Paradoxes by Daniel Barenboim and Edward Said. Explorations in Music and Society, edited and with a preface by Ara Guselimian. Musician Daniel Barenboim and academic Edward Said have a conversation about music and culture, and I've found that a lot of Barenboim's points particularly have really spoken to me and connected with me in terms of my ideas about music and about sound. A lot of the topics that Alex Ross touches on sort of comes up in conversation between these two as well. And like, for example, how audiences experience music performances, how that differs from the musician's point of view, how that has changed with new technology and with a changing attitude towards music production, interpretation of notation. There's just so many different things because it's two different perspectives. A lot of the time the conversation takes very unexpected turns. And then the last two books that I am currently reading is first of all the one I have left over from October, which is The Lottery and Other Stories by Shirley Jackson. I am rereading this one. It has been really fun because this was the first book I read by Shirley Jackson, and she is currently one of my favorite writers, so it's fun to see how my experience with this changes has changed since becoming much more acquainted with her as a writer. I also just started reading A Rather Haunted Life by Ruth Franklin, which is a biography of Shirley Jackson, and I already love this. So those are all of the currently reading books I have. I have a few other books out from the library. In terms of nonfiction, I have several books on my Nonfiction November TBR that I haven't touched yet and really want to get to. And also, when you read one book and you really enjoy that, you want to read more books in the same genre. Like, for example, I'm currently really drawn to books on music, so I'm also wanting to reach for some other books on my shelves. So yeah, that was all I wanted to touch on today. I would love to know, what are you currently reading for Nonfiction November, or are you reading anything else really good? Have you read any of the books that I mentioned? Do you have any recent favorites in terms of life or movies, music, TV shows? Have you watched Squid Game yet? I just finished watching it and definitely enjoyed it. It isn't one of my recent favorites, but I did really enjoy it. And yeah, I think that was all I wanted to say. Hope you're doing fantastic, and I will talk to you soon. Bye!